So hopefully it'll go live in just a minute. It'll show up when it does finally on here. Yay, okay, it showed up. So I'm going to mute it over on this side so we can chat and whatnot. All right, so hopefully some folks will show up and we can talk to them. So let us know if you're in the chat. Hello. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to let everyone introduce themselves, but first, welcome everybody to the second monthly Gauntlet Club live show. I don't really know what I'm saying. Welcome to the Dracula live show. I'm going to let all the hosts introduce themselves. I'm Kate. This is my channel, Chapter Kate. I do stuff. So I guess, go ahead, Taylor.
Hi, I'm Taylor from Page Screen Taylor. I post videos semi-regularly about all different types of genres, and if you watch the last Gauntlet live show, I love Gothic literature.
All right, go ahead, Amy.
I'm Amy, and I read just about everything, and I've read Dracula who knows how many times. I literally cannot count.
And go ahead, Sarah.
Hi, my name is Sarah. My channel is Sarah the Story Girl. I like to make videos about the books I read and also writing, and Gothic is one of my favorite genres. Perfect.
All right, I'm just sharing on here to make sure that people are showing up and know that we're on and stuff. So I think everyone else, this was their first time reading Dracula besides Amy, who is our aficionado, our Dracula aficionado. Is that correct? This is everybody else's first time?
Yeah.
Right, okay. Yeah, so this is definitely my first time as well. I think it's interesting, like with Dracula, just what was everyone's sort of idea going in? What were their thoughts going in? What did you expect?
I knew going into it that it wasn't going to be what I expected, like for a vampire story, since it's one of the originals. But I was definitely surprised. I was both surprised pleasantly and also I don't want to say unpleasantly, but I was definitely a little disappointed by how Dracula is barely really a character in the story overall. Like, he's definitely more in the background than anything else. But
it's a really
overall, it was a good read.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point also.
I loved it. I think I knew going in that I would like it. I just didn't expect to love it as much as I did. And I think part of it was I didn't think we'd get to see as many perspectives as we did. I knew it was epistolary going in, but I thought for some reason Dracula would be having a say in things. I knew Jonathan Harker and Mina and were going to be writing parts of the book. And I knew that like maybe there were a couple of vlogs, but I didn't expect to get such a full cast of characters. And I just really loved that dynamic and all of the moving pieces. And I didn't expect to love it as much as I did.
I think when I first read it, I wasn't sure what to expect. Like, it's a classic. It's probably going to be slow. Hopefully I like it. And I just got sucked right into it. I kind of like that Dracula isn't in it that much. I mean, it would be really interesting to have him in it more, but for me, it's like building up the fear of the unknown because they don't really know that much about this guy. They don't really see him around, and that almost makes him scarier.
Ooh.
Also, I think it was my first epistolary book that I ever read.
So I got to learn what the word epistolary means today. So that's exciting because I Googled it. I didn't know that was the word for like when it's written in letters. And so that's so cool because I know I've always loved like books written in alternative formats, like, you know, in text messages, emails, files, and stuff like that. My first exposure to that was like, I think Sleeping Giants. Was it Sleeping Giants? The Themis Files trilogy. And so I was really excited to see that because I was like, I thought this was like a new thing that people did. It's like the hot new thing the kids are doing. So I thought that was exciting. But I definitely didn't expect to be like as I don't know. I didn't expect. There was a lot of things that were kind of caught me off guard. I expected it to be a little bit slower than it was. I didn't expect it to be as plot heavy as it was, which was awesome because I love plot. That's my thing. But yeah, I kind of thought it was interesting what you mentioned, Sarah, about Dracula not being in it very much. It was like mostly we were getting perceptions of Dracula rather than him, you know, himself, which I thought was kind of cool. So let's I have a couple of questions here I want to go over, but also I just wanted to ask what y'all thought about the different characters, because I have a hard time keeping up with characters typically in books, so this is a fun time. Ooh, but there's a page that has all their names on it. That's helpful in my book here, so I can actually read them off. So I thought this was all going to be from Jonathan Harker at the beginning, but let's talk about him first. What's everybody's opinion on Jonathan Harker?
I like him.
Yeah. I liked him a lot. I like the idea of like a lawyer being the first person in the book to witness all of this, because lawyers are very like straightforward. It's a very serious like profession. And I just like following him as he sort of notices weird things going on.
He's like, okay, I guess this is what we're doing. I'm gonna go with it. Like, guys, got something.
Yeah, I loved his opening chapters where it's kind of like a traditional Gothic where he's in the castle and noticing all the weird things. It was really fun. And like I love the suspense, especially of those sections at the beginning.
I agree with that. I think it's funny. Like he's at that place where everybody's kind of like whispering about him. He's like, "Let me pull out my polyglot dictionary," and and it's like, wow, they keep saying the word vampire. Weird, He's just. That's odd, and everybody's like trying to get him to not go. He's like, I have a job to do. And I'm like, I would take, if I sneeze once, I'm not going into work. I mean, now I think everyone should do it, but like even before this whole year, if I cough, I'm like, well, today's done. And he's like determined to do his job. And I like how he's like, I'm pretty sure the guy driving was the same guy as the guy at the door, but he's just like, you know what? I'll let him play his little games. It's fine.
I do love the like oblivious horror movie guy trope, because that's not me. At the first sign of anything going wrong, I'm out of there. So like I love that he gets to the village and people are like crossing themselves and warning him, and he's like, it's a bit odd. And he looks out the window and sees Dracula like crawling down the wall, and he's like,
Can I get his exercise somehow?
I think something's afoot.
It reminds me a lot in that way of reading Jurassic Park, because when you first start it, they're like, oh, what's going on? Maybe it's a dinosaur, but like no one wants to say the word dinosaur or raptor. It's like saying the term will curse everything.
Mm-hmm. It's like the word zombie in every single bit of zombie anything. Can't call it that. Walker, the dead.
Just call it a zombie. That's what it is.
A freaking zombie. Yeah, no, I think that was funny too. They wouldn't call him that, and also Jonathan's just like it's nice that they gave us a character that was so like logic minded, because he takes great notes, and it gives it makes it realistic that he would take such detailed notes, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He was a mess though. He's like, this man's obsessed with me, though. He's like really into me. I've never seen him eat. It's not normal, I guess, but I'm gonna stay.
Servants are really good at their jobs. Like I never see them, but they get an awful lot of work done.
It's true. It's true. Okay. Well, that's Jonathan. What about Mina?
I like her. She's actually, I think, one of my favorite characters in literature. I read a lot, like some of the issues that people have with Dracula are that it is very sexist against women, which I totally get that. But I almost feel like the character of Mina kind of shines like in spite of that. Like she is this really tough character, and she's like, no, I don't want to just sit back here and be dainty. I want to help. I want to do something. I see a lot of myself in that. Like I cannot just sit by and watch people do stuff. I have to be in the action.
Yeah.
And I feel like
sorry, go ahead.
And I feel like Mina, like they couldn't have done 90% of what happens in the book without her. Like she does most of the work, it feels like.
Seriously.
Yeah. I think it would be really easy to sort of like write off Mina as like a Victorian ideal of a woman, but I still think like a lot of the book wouldn't have happened without her. She's shown to be very smart, incredibly capable. She helps a lot of the men out, and I don't know. I also saw a lot of myself in Mina in that she's also very like, I guess like she falls into a lot of traditional feminine gender roles, but I don't always think that's a bad thing. I don't know, justice for Mina. Not justice for Mina, but Mina deserves more rights. I love her.
More rights for Mina. I agreed. I actually kind of thought she was sort of an icon a little bit, because I felt like even if they did try to stick her in certain boxes, she was like, no, I'm going to be involved also, and even though she did follow certain roles based on like what she'd been surrounded by, because the just kind of cultural norms and expectations of, where she grew up, she still was kind of a badass, and I appreciate that. And even when faced with like something that's pretty damning, she was just like, well, I'm still going to do my best and we're going to keep going and I'm going to type stuff out, I guess is what she was doing at one point. But like, I thought that was cool. And I like how she was like, I'm not really one for fainting and stuff like that. And I really appreciated Mina. I really did. Let's see, who is next? Lucy Westenra. Thoughts?
I feel like she deserved better. As far as character writing, like she's definitely the one. She's going to be the one that has all that happen to her because she has 3 proposals in one day, and she's like, I don't want people to think that I'm a fast and easy girl or something. I just hang out with these really cool guys. But she deserved better. Like she was so sweet, and it's like, okay, she got 3 proposals. That doesn't. She's a fast and easy girl because of that. It's frustrating.
I feel like there was a lot of bad luck with her story. Just everyone failing every step of the way. Like, she's got garlic in her room to protect her, but her mom walks in and is like, I don't want her room to smell of garlic. Let me just get rid of these.
Yeah.
Or like her and her mom sleeping in the same bed and a dog crashes through their window and the mom grabs the garlic necklace. Just bad luck all around. And I would have
telegrams late.
Poor girl, honestly. Worse luck. I think what I would have loved is for her to survive much longer and maybe be sort of like a vampire antagonist. Like maybe she joins forces with Dracula and becomes like a badass lady vampire.
Yes.
I would have liked to see more about how the brides and Dracula kind of work together because we saw them separate forces, but we didn't really see like how they work with each other.
I agree. I think with Lucy also, I kind of wanted her to be, because she was like doing stuff like while sleepwalking, I wanted her to be more of like I don't really know how to describe the type of character. Typically this character is very problematic, but someone who's just very kind of flighty and like daydreamy and like everything's kind of doesn't make any sense, but it's okay. Like I wanted her to be kind of that kind of character, I think, a lot. And yeah, no, I thought it was funny that she had 3 proposals and she was still she appreciated them anyway. She wasn't like, I regret my decision. She wasn't like wavering, but she was like, I think it's nice that they're like this and I am just so fortunate. And
the guys are legitimately like, all right, I'm not going to let the friend zone get to me. I'm going to actually be friends with this person. I'm like, why can't modern people like the male friendships in this book are amazing.
Oh my gosh, yes. And Rena just said this. Lucy definitely deserved better, and I really like how she thinks about how she would like to marry all 3 of her suitors. I agree. I think she really did put thought into it, and she knew what she wanted. Though she held on to what she wanted, which I thought was pretty nice. But
yeah.
So let's get to the guys, since the boys. Since you mentioned them, having really good, guy friendships and stuff in here. I thought it was really. What's the opposite of toxic masculinity? Like some of them might have been, but like it was like just healthy. Like I liked how it was kind of healthy. They weren't. I didn't really think they were belittling when they would try to like protect or stand up for Lucy or Mina. But also I was raised in this. I live in the South in the United States, and like guys hold up in the door for you, and they things like that. So like I'm used to that kind of stuff. But I did think that they were just, good gentlemen, kind of guys. And I thought that was really nice to see. And they weren't like, I don't know, demeaning or anything. So that was cool. But I guess if we broke them up to individuals, how did y'all feel about John Seward, whose name I never say right. Seward?
I usually say Seward. I don't know.
Seward? The doctor guy.
I always kind of feel like whenever I think about Dracula, I think of it as Jonathan Harker's story because he was the one that started everything off. But in rereading it, it's like it's really John Seward's story. He's the one who's talking through, 60% of this?
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of a shame he doesn't get more attention because I feel like a lot of the story really comes together when his narrative is sort of woven into the book.
I agree with that. I also think that, like, I was the same way. I kind of thought of it as Jonathan Harker because I thought that that's who it was going to be the whole time before realizing what it was going to look like. And then I was like, oh, it's Van Helsing's story, but it's not. And so I agree that he kind of had the main voice in it. And just like seeing the way he, dealt with certain situations was very interesting to me. So, yeah. What about, how do you say these guys' names? I'm trying to remember how to pronounce the other ones' names.
Quincy and Van Helsing.
Yes, Quincy. Let's talk about Quincy.
Question, since you live in the South, what did you think of Quincy? Like, when I read that part, I'm like, this is really kind of stereotypical and not how I imagine Americans, but I'm up in Montana, so.
I like how he's like, I brought the guns. And I was like, that sounds about right. Like, I got my first gun at age 8. I was taught gun safety way before that. Like, as soon as I could hold something, I was taught gun safety. And like, it's very, normal around here. And just the way he did act, like his gentleman tendencies and stuff were very accurate. Like, they felt very accurate. And I listened to the audiobook for, like, big portions of it. And it was so fun to hear his accent.
Same. Like, I was very surprised by his character in the audiobook. I wasn't expecting that accent.
I really just jumps out. You what?
I was very delighted by the Texan accent to the point where, like, I just imagined him as, like, that episode of SpongeBob where he's in the cowboy boots and the 10-gallon hat? That's what I think of when I think of Quincy.
Yeehaw.
I love him.
I like the Scottish accent too. Like, in the audiobook, there's a Scottish guy. Was he a boat captain or something? I don't remember. I can't remember. And he was like talking for this huge block, like just talking, and couldn't understand anything.
The captain or the old guy on the hill?
I think the old guy on the hill is the one I'm thinking of.
I struggle with his part because that's where the old language and the sailor language combine, and I just have a really hard time. But speaking of accents, even a good Dracula accent is a bad Dracula accent.
That's fair.
Even listening to the audiobook, I'm like, oh my god.
I work with, this is kind of a tangent, but not really. I work with someone from Romania, and me and my best friend were like in a meeting with her one time, and my best friend would always make fun of or like, get at people for like using different accents, because there are people from all over the place that work with me. Like, there's so many different accents. I got Syrian, Romanian, the Ethiopian, like all these different Indian, all these different accents at work, and it's awesome. But it's also like funny because sometimes when someone will quote somebody, they'll like default to their accent, and my best friend would always like get on to them for doing that. And then one time she was like doing a Dracula accent, and the Romanian doctor was in that same meeting, and she was like, what was that? She was like, Dracula's from my country. And we were like, do it. And it was just like so funny because there really isn't, like, even her accent, like if she tried to read Dracula, I would think she was faking it. Even though she's got that accent. I was be like, I feel like this is just not good. What about Renfield?
Renfield I was always confused by. Like, I can tell that he's an important character, but I just don't quite understand how that connection works.
Yeah.
I kept getting confused.
I was expecting more from him, and then it didn't really go any of the directions I thought it was going to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kept getting confused with like the characters that weren't more caricature-like, I guess, besides like Mina and John. Like Quincy was easy because he stood out, and stuff like that. I felt like the characters that weren't like that were really hard for me to hang on to,
Well, and I also remember there was a comment by Lucy, because I think she was talking in the beginning about Dr. Seward and how like she would work really well, or he would work really well for Mina, but Mina's already taken, and that would have been interesting to see more of that kind of interaction, which I think they worked well together. But it's like, what did she do with that comment?
Yeah, that would have been interesting. Let's explore. I feel like if it was like a TV show, that's something that they would utilize. It's like, hey, I want to make this 5 episodes longer. Go on this little rabbit hole.
The Netflix Dracula show yet?
I haven't.
I've watched like the first episode and a half. It definitely goes in a different direction, but I like it. But also the beginning of the first episode is really freaky. Like, bugs.
I gotta watch it now. Gonna write myself a little note. Okay, so I guess we need to get to the two. Okay, I think of these as the two like pillars in my opinion. But what do y'all think of Van Helsing?
I don't really have any opinions.
He's a lot nerdier than I thought he would be. I feel like a lot of media has portrayed Van Helsing as very like sexy or hot, and he was kind of a nerd. I was telling like a lot of people like I would want to stuff him into my Victorian locker lovingly because I love him, but he was a lot nerdier than I thought he was going to be, and he was a lot less, I guess, action based. He wasn't as much out there hunting vampires as he was like providing a lot of information on how to hunt vampires.
He's someone I would have liked to see his perspective in this, like gotten more entries from him besides telegrams.
Yeah.
He's the mysterious one. We don't really get his insight. We know he knows something, but we don't know what he knows.
Isn't he older? Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're good. I was just going to say he could have been fleshed out more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel like he kind of pissed me off because I'm like, just tell everybody stuff. Like, why are you just like, hey, we should put these weird flowers on her, but and then like be mad that someone like, come on, share the information.
I do kind of appreciate that though, because you have like shows and movies where they're like, oh, I'm a zombie, and the other person's like, okay, cool, that's a thing. And in this book, it's like, wait, but I don't think they actually exist, do they? That's just a superstition. So I kind of liked that because I feel like a lot of books and movies, the characters are too easygoing about it and believe it too easily.
I feel like it's gone like a wave because I feel like it started out being disbelief and then like it went to like the more like accepting thing almost, because I feel like people were like, I just want that person to be cool, And so I definitely get that. I think it was interesting how he wanted to like get someone in the position where they couldn't actually have any doubts about it before he like revealed the darkness within and all that good stuff. So yeah, no, okay. So I thought he was like, I agreed he was a total nerd. And there has been like, there's a show, Van Helsing. It's all about vampire hunters. Have y'all seen that?
I haven't.
It's really good.
I don't think I've even seen the movie the whole way through.
I haven't seen the movie. I watched some of the show, and there are some issues. Like there's some ableism that I don't appreciate, but the violence is fun. So let's go to Dracula himself, which we talked a little bit about. Him not always being, at the forefront. I keep hitting my microphone, so sorry if you hear big booms. It's like right up in my face and I talk with my hands. But like, how did y'all feel about his character?
I liked him. I do kind of like that he wasn't in the book a lot. He was more of this sort of silent threat that was always present, but not always there physically. I liked a lot of the sort of mythology around him. I think some of it has been lost. Like, I think we've maintained the running water, turns into a bat, can walk on walls, sleeps in a coffin, is generally creepy but charming. But, I haven't encountered a lot of media where he can turn into a dog or where he I think at one point he can like turn into mist or fog or something, or did I misread that? Or
I think it's more he can control it.
Control fog. Yeah, I haven't seen that a lot in media.
Yeah, it was a little unclear with that.
Yeah. To be fair, when I say media, I'm mostly working off of Castlevania, so
I think he's a creep. I do appreciate him as a character though. Like the guy did his research. He researched the accents, he researched the country, he was very thorough, and I liked that.
The commitment. He's just really in character. He's basically just a LARPer, you know?
And I like how in Dracula, like he looks younger as he drinks more blood, and that is a feature that I would love to see more in media that I don't really see anyone play with. They did that actually a little bit in the Dracula TV show that I was talking about. But that one, the guy's got this terrible B-movie accent, and then it gets more English as he goes on. But anyways, I appreciated him. It was very interesting.
I love accents that change over the course of that's like Mohinder Suresh in Heroes. Like his accent was different every episode, you know. I love that. Sarah, did you have any other thoughts on Dracula? I know you mentioned him kind of not being very well fleshed out.
I like the mythology of it. I think the vampire stories that I prefer tend to be the ones where I focus more on the vampire characters rather than the humans killing the vampires. So that element wasn't my favorite part of the book. Mm-hmm. But
I think that's really interesting because that's something that like I feel like media has done more of like recently with a lot of different things is they've made the bad guys more something we can sympathize with more in most things rather than it being very cut and dry. Even like Star Wars, it was very like, okay, this is the light side, this is the dark side. You know, one's good, one's bad. And then it's like, which side will you choose now? Like all the commercials for stuff is like, are you a dark side or a light side? And it's like not just expected for you to fight the darkness and all that good stuff. So I did think it was interesting that usually we do have that now. So speaking of, what's everyone's favorite media that you feel like was a result of Dracula?
It's a good question.
I thought of it just a little bit ago.
Okay. Go ahead.
I was just going to say I'd have to say the book because outside of half of the TV show, I haven't really seen the media. Like I haven't watched the movies or anything.
Yeah. I kind of agree with that. I haven't seen a lot of like Dracula media or like adaptations of Dracula, but I will give two. Any Scooby-Doo thing that has to do with vampires or Dracula, particularly Scooby-Doo and the Legend of the Vampire, which isn't directly taken from Dracula, but I feel like there's probably some Dracula influence because it's not like they did research on Australian vampires or the Yahoo, which I think is what they're fighting. And also Castlevania. It's really good, really gory. But great. Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Sarah?
It's not a Dracula adaptation specifically, but reading the book, it reminded me a lot of some of the things they do. It's an anime called Shiki, and it was like from 2010, I think, and it's a really interesting take on vampires, and I feel like a lot of the stuff with Lucy, her character, and like the characters finding out her turning into a vampire and trying to figure that out reminded me a lot of how they do it in Shiki when they reveal vampires in that anime.
Interesting. I've never heard of it. That's awesome. I think my favorite is the Count from Sesame Street. Personally, like he is my favorite Sesame Street character from like babyhood. I don't know. You know, I like as soon as I could watch Sesame Street, that was my go-to. And now anytime I count something, I'm like, there's 3 pages. 3. And then like I can't without my head like hearing just his little every time, and it's very amusing, and people are always concerned. But I am amused, so that's all that matters. But besides that, what we do in the shadows is like,
yeah, that's really good.
Shadows, it's amazing.
Amazing, I loved it.
Oh, it's so good, and honestly, I think maybe the best vampire media out there.
Yes.
Yeah.
That guy in general, the guy who plays the main roommate, what's his name? He does so much cool work.
Clement? Or Taika Waititi?
That guy.
Yeah.
Everything he does is golden.
He's fantastic. I love him.
And that one guy was on not the main guy vampire, but the other guy vampire. He was in like IT crowd and stuff, and he always talks like this, like it's like he's giving a speech, and like everything he's in just amuses me so much.
My husband said that the one guy with the longer hair who was upset about the beach and everything, he is I can't tell you. He's in a band of some kind, and he's actually really good at the guitar, even though he pretends that he's bad at music in the show. I kind of wish he was here right now. He could tell me, but I can't remember.
That's awesome. I feel like the media surrounding vampires has like changed so much, and I wonder if it's because like it's easier to limit like certain abilities, and when you're creating like a book or a movie, it's easier to put limits on things because it's almost like Dracula is a combination between a werewolf and a vampire, because he can turn into all these, animals and stuff. So I always thought that was like he was just this one thing. He did bat and he did man person, and that was his two vibes. And I can't believe he can go into all these other things. So that kind of took me a minute to like adjust to, So I'm going to pull out the deep questions now and see if we can do this. Okay, so this question is, let's see. How does Count Dracula's aggression jeopardize his victims' hopes for eternal rest? Or how do their views of death shape the ways in which they confront his threat? I know that's a
good question. Can you read it again?
Yeah, no. So there's like two halves to this. We'll just go with one at a time. So how does his aggression jeopardize their hopes for eternal rest?
Well, I feel like this book has a lot of like Christian influences in it, and a lot of that has to deal with like, I guess, sort of welcoming death. Also, like, don't quote me 100% on this. I'm a Catholic, but I'm very bad at it. So so I feel like a lot of the people in the book are especially Mina is very scared about her soul in this. And I feel like that's almost a bigger threat to her. She's not as scared of dying as she is of being undead and not being able to, like, I guess, rest in the Christian way.
Mm-hmm. And then Jonathan Harker, I remember closer to the end, he's like, well, if she's going to be a vampire, I'm going to be a vampire too, so we're not going to be alone. So for him, it wasn't so much fear of losing his soul as fear of losing Mina.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The other guys, I think they just wanted revenge for Lucy.
I definitely feel that. I think also, like, because I'm a Christian, and like I know, like, when it comes to things you're scared of, it's like, okay, well, worst thing that can happen is I can die, and if I die, it's okay because there's this conceptualized idea of the afterlife and things, and it's all wrapped up in a nice, this is what's going to happen. And so when it throws a wrench into everything that it kind of definitely can mess with you a little bit.
Yeah.
Iggy asked this: do you think tabletop games like Vampire the Masquerade has impacted society's view on vampires? Thoughts?
I haven't played that yet.
I haven't played Vampire the Masquerade, but it puts me in mind of Curse of Strahd, which I haven't played, but it's a D&D sort of, I guess, like, adventure. And what I know is that a lot of the vampires there take from the Dracula lore, so, like, they can't cross running water. One of the vampires, not Strahd specifically, can, like, crawl on walls and so on. So I feel like maybe a lot of them have, like, loaned from the Dracula texts, but I can't say specifically how they've influenced it. Sorry, that was very rambly.
No, it was great because I feel like you have more experience with that.
I would think, I don't know much about Vampires the Masquerade specifically, but I would think that in very old stories about vampires, they're portrayed as this like evil kind of unknown force, but imagining yourself as a vampire and making up stories and playing games in which you're you're the vampire yourself. I can imagine that aided in romanticizing vampires in the media and wanting to be a vampire rather than wanting to kill a vampire.
Yeah. And as much as I don't want to bring it up, but I feel like Twilight played a very big role in that, because I'm pretty sure that's like, that inspired a lot of people to want to kiss vampires, but also want to be a vampire.
Media did as media does and sexualized it. Because what else are you going to do? There's nothing else interesting about life.
Make it all. I was wondering who would bring up Twilight first, but we get so bored.
How long is it going to take?
But yeah, no, I think that Twilight was a weird turning point in vampire media. Like, I don't know if prior to that, if it was made super sexy. I mean, it's kind of sexy in Dracula, but
it was like darker sexy, and now I feel like it's a little more lighthearted.
It's like fake dark sexy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's more moody than dark and deadly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think I don't know. It's weird to me that we have to, like, everything is sexualized. And it can be very easily sexualized because of the whole, like, it's on your neck and it's like a,
Yeah.
all that
and
stuff.
The brides specifically are supposed to be very seductive. Mm-hmm. I think we don't really get a very seductive view of Dracula because Jonathan Harker is the first person to come in contact with him. And as far as we know, he is a straight man. So he's not looking at Dracula as sexy. And for the most part, we're following what I'm going to assume are straight men. And they're not looking at Dracula that way. But the brides are, I guess, meant to seduce them. They find them sexy. So I guess maybe if we had more Mina or Lucy perspective, maybe they would look at Dracula and be like, wow, what a man.
Something that I noticed in this reading, because Dracula, I think, was up for eating just about anything, which I think that could be an interesting discussion between him and how he viewed Jonathan Harker. But the female vampires are always eating the children. Like, they go after the kids, they go after the babies. And then Dracula he has more of a predator feel to him, whereas the brides are more like, oh, I'm going to seduce you.
Mm-hmm.
But again, they mainly ate the kids. They almost got Jonathan Harker, but...
Yeah. Which is interesting because, like, evolution-wise, like, if you can produce children, like, evolution-wise, you're supposed to, like, be very protective over children. Mm-hmm. So that is a very interesting, like, twist on that.
I think that's supposed to add to maybe, like, how wrong the brides feel. Like, you're a woman. Aren't you supposed to be caring for children? Mm-hmm. And, like, it's supposed to make it much more creepy.
Mm-hmm. It also kind of brought us back to the demonization, I think, of sexuality with women, because you have Lucy, who had 3 proposals and the stuff that happened to her. I don't know how much we're going into spoilers with this. And
then go for it.
You have the brides who are like, oh, Jonathan Harker, he's here all alone. Dracula's not around. We're going to feast on him. Mm-hmm. So, and they were bad characters, and Lucy gets turned into a vampire, and they're like, it's definitely a demonization of it.
I actually really agree with that because that's something that's been very common, especially in, like, classics. And I mean, it still exists. It's still something that's consistent. Like, oh, in horror movies, it's like, oh, she had sex. As soon as you see her boobs, she's dead. We just watched Cabin in the Woods recently, and they were waiting on that moment so they could kill her. And I mean, that never happened. I don't spoil things, but I'll spoil Dracula though because it's classic. But Rena made a really good point here that she heard the Mina scene was read as rape-like a couple of times. So it was sort of kind of compared that way.
Really uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. Especially this scene right here that she mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. What is the other half of that question? I think we pretty much already covered that. Let's see. Oh my gosh, all the questions I'm looking at are like things that we have already like touched on. Like, good job, everybody. Let's see. One asked, do you think that Dracula is a religious novel? And what is the significance of the role played by the holy objects and stuff like that?
I definitely think it is. Maybe not explicitly meant to convert people. Like, I don't know if Bram Stoker went out with the intent of like creating a religious novel that will bring people to Christianity, but there's clearly a lot of what I would assume is his belief system in there. The holy objects that repel them, but also, the emphasis on one's soul and what happens after you die, I think is also very prevalent in the book. So.
I don't know. I don't remember a ton about like the different Christianities. I know a little about Catholicism since that's my husband and his family's main religion. But wasn't it at the beginning we're learning that Jonathan Harker's like Protestant or something? Like he's part of the English church, which isn't the same as Catholicism.
Yeah.
Like what would be their different beliefs with that? Or I know my husband talks about how Catholicism does focus a little more on like demons. They have this idea of like demons as an actual thing, which I think plays a part in the novel.
Yeah, go ahead, Taylor.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, like, I know Jonathan Harker referred to, like, these people kept handing him the crucifix, and as one of the many warnings he gets leading up to the castle, that he
all the omens.
But someone hands him a crucifix, and he refers to the crucifix as idolatrous. So I'm not Protestant, I'm Catholic, but I do know that like Catholics do love their rosaries, their crucifixes, and their statues. And those are, I guess, what could be considered idolatrous in some religions.
Yeah, so I was raised Protestant. Specifically, I was raised in charismatic churches, Pentecostal primarily, which is we scare people a little bit because we make a lot of noise and we move a lot, and sometimes we randomly just start running around the building because we get real excited. And so we've never really had a huge issue with like symbols and stuff, but I have had a couple of leaders that have been like, it's more than putting a Jesus fish on your car, and it's more than just a keychain, and talking about that kind of thing. But I did think it was interesting that they also, while kind of imparting these ideas, they also kind of went against some of the ideas like in the Bible. It's like, once you're saved, it's not like anyone else can control that. But the way that this story went is that someone else could actually take that away from you. And so that was kind of interesting. And it's like the person that is experiencing that is actually a victim. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, something that I wanted to mention, the blood types.
Ooh.
It was the first or second time that I was reading this book, and I'm like, something isn't right here. How can everyone just donate blood willy-nilly with no consequences? And I looked it up, and he missed the day by 2 or 3 years?
Wow.
He just missed the mark on blood types, and I think that really could have added to the stakes of this. Like,
stakes.
I didn't mean to do that. But, maybe I can donate blood, maybe I can't. What if it actually kills her? Like, that would have added so many more levels. And I'm like, you just missed it. You published too early.
Just waited a little bit. No, I think that's something interesting because, I think that the addition of blood types could have also added so many other, like, what if vampires had a preference and things like that.
You can only drink one kind.
Yeah, like if you had that type or not,
Be like actual blood types. You can drink the blood of someone with like an O, whatever it is, positive or negative. But like maybe if you were AB in life, you can only drink from the AB humans. That would be interesting.
I really want like a scientifically correct vampire story now. So anyone out there, do it.
It was kind of stressful when people were just like, "Oh, I'll just donate blood to Lucy," and I was like, "Well, wait, hold on." Maybe she didn't die of, Dracula sucking her blood. Maybe she just died because he kept pumping random blood into her.
It's like, okay, well, I'm out. Your turn. Let's go.
Captain.
Yeah. Those sections made me really uncomfortable.
Yes. I'm not a fan of, like, blood. I mean, I don't mind reading about it, but, like, needles, I draw the line at needles.
Nope. Nothing doing.
Can't do needles. Okay, the next question. We sort of covered part of it, but not really. At the tender age of 19, Lucy Westenra has had multiple suitors and 3 proposals of marriage. What impact does her choice of groom-to-be have on the 2 she rejects?
I mean, one of the things I really liked about this book was that none of the grooms are, like, they're sad. and they're disappointed, but none of them are super vindictive or mean about it. And I mean, I just love the fact, and you mentioned this earlier, Amy, that they're not only like not rude to Lucy about it, they're willing to be her friend, but also there's no real rivalry between all of the guys. Like all of the 3 suitors, they all kind of become friends and team up by the end. So yeah, I really like that element of the book.
There's definitely a lot of love there. And they're like, okay, yeah, I'm upset about this, but now I'm going to fight for her because I loved her regardless.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that. I kind of seemed like they didn't go like, woe is me, and then despair. You know, they were pretty chill about it.
I think the friendships they all had with Lucy and with each other was just like so wholesome.
Yeah. I agree. And then they're like still willing to like risk their lives for her and, you know, defend her and her honor and all that good stuff.
Has anyone else here read Carmilla yet?
I really want to.
I bought it. My copy will be here in like a week or so. I'm really excited to read it.
I don't remember the exact publishing date, but it was written before Dracula, so Dracula's not like the original novel.
Oh.
This one doesn't tell me, it just says 2013. But it was written at least a couple years before. And I think it's interesting because like I don't think it's canonically queer, but you definitely get some seriously queer vibes from this. And I'm wondering, like, did it inspire Dracula in any way?
Carmilla came out in 1872, so about 20 years before Dracula came out.
Thank you.
I think that's interesting because I feel like a lot of Gothic literature has those vibes, you know? You're like, is he, you know? And so
Picture of Dorian Gray has those vibes, right? Not that I does either. Picture of Dorian Gray.
Oh yeah.
And then we've got Carmilla. You have the Dracula Jonathan Harker thing that's never totally clear.
Mm-hmm. It's like he's obsessed too. Like he's like very into Mr. Jonathan.
I like that Gothic literature goes there.
Yeah.
Not afraid of anything.
Literature goes there. Then you have the monk, which is too straight.
I've heard of that. That's an older Victorian one too, isn't it?
I think it was written in the 1700s. Like it's one of the first Gothic novels, and it's I like it. It's not good though. It's a little too wild of a ride.
It's The Monk?
The Monk, by Matthew Lewis. It's just about this Catholic monk who sees a naked woman once and immediately sells his soul to Satan for a magic branch to pass through walls. He literally wastes no time, just here to there immediately.
0 to 100, let's go.
0 to 100, selling my soul to Satan. He hooks up with a witch. Just no chill. That's why I love it. But it is, and I say this as a heterosexual person, it's too heterosexual.
That's really funny. I really want to read it now. I like bad movies, so I mean,
yeah, it's dramatique.
My husband is a B-movie buff, and he's starting to get me into it. Like, Mom and Dad Save the World, that's my jam. I love that.
Yeah, like I don't know if it's Saturday or Sunday. I think we do kind of both days, but like bad zombie movies are like the weekends. Even though I prefer just like monsters, but he's like, I want to watch a zombie movie, and I'm like, I want Sand Sharks too. Come on. So like we definitely love those bad movies and stuff.
That reminds me, another question, like what other books have you guys read for this? I remember I watched I Am Legend several years ago, and until this year, when I started watching reviews on the book, I thought it was a zombie movie. Mm-hmm. I could have sworn that's a zombie story, it's a zombie book, it's a zombie movie. Nope, and it's not about vampires.
It's like a mix. It feels mixed. I don't know. They can't go into the light. It's weird. It's like a weird mix. Yeah.
No, next month I read Twilight.
I'm trying to think of other vampire things I've actually. There was this one really bad movie that we watched. And there was like these 2 vampire chicks, and they like accidentally they had like this thing that they would do, this grift, you know, and they would like, we're on the side of the road, and then they get picked up and they'd eat the people. But the thing is, they got picked up by cannibals. But there was also a zombie apocalypse going on, and it was like a whole thing. So that was probably my favorite.
I need to know what movie this is.
I can't remember. I have to look it up again. It was so bad. It was great. Other than that, like, and What We Do in the Shadows, which is great. I'm trying to think of other. I keep thinking of Rocky Horror Picture Show, even though it's more like Frankenstein. There's the vibes, though. You know, all black with the red lip.
The vibes and the Frankenstein content.
Mm-hmm.
Scooby-Doo in the Ghoul School got me started on vampires.
Yes.
Daughter was so cool, and I was like, so vampires must be cool, and I want to be cool. So.
Want to be a vampire. Easy jump there.
Fright Night. I don't think I've seen the original Fright Night, but I saw the new one. And then I started to watch the second one, which is the worst thing that I have ever seen put to film.
Fright Night.
Don't watch the second new Fright Night. It's not even B-movie bad. It's like,
oh, that's sad.
Is it like so bad it's funny or so bad it's embarrassing?
It's worse than embarrassing. It's definitely not funny.
The Winona Ryder Dracula. I'm sorry, I was looking at this. Go ahead, Sarah.
I really love Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the show.
Oh, yeah.
It's really good. It was like probably my introduction to vampires when I was like a younger teen. My mom watched it with me because she grew up watching it and then introduced it to me. And that was probably still my favorite piece of vampire media.
I think Buffy is what got me into like the campy media. Because those masks were so awful, but so good.
I want to rewatch Buffy now. Like, the fact that Dolly Parton, I don't know. I really want to rewatch Buffy because it was just so good, and it was like had the big stakes, you know. It was nice. I saw this by Rena over here. I didn't know that there was a Winona Ryder Dracula musical though.
What was that on with Winona? Like, she's amazing.
I love Winona so much.
Dracula the musical. That sounds like it could be interesting.
I'm here for it.
I'm thinking of like a dark or classic rock vibe or something.
Yes.
Like glam rock or something, like inspired.
Oh my gosh, that would be amazing. I picture that other roommate from What We Do in the Shadows would be the glam rock Dracula.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with that. I was like looking up where you can watch the Van Helsing musical. I was trying to see. Is it like on YouTube? I need to know. Okay. Next question. I'll figure it out later. Dracula pits science and reason against the superstition and the occult. Are these opposing philosophies ever reconciled? So, like, is there a happy medium between the two? I guess.
That's a good question. I guess my answer would be I don't know. I think that there is a sort of like mix. For example, the blood transfusion to save Lucy. I don't know why I was going to say Lindy. Lucy. And you also, I mean, the fact that Dr. Seward is a doctor, and is Van Helsing a doctor or is he just a man? I can't remember.
I think he's a professor.
He's a professor.
I would say he has a doctorate, but I wouldn't say he's a doctor.
Okay. Yeah. I'm realizing now that I don't exactly remember what he does for a living.
It didn't really say, like, it's professor, but you're not, I don't think he said professor of what?
Vampires. Hi, I'm the professor of, what was that?
Maybe he's like an Indiana Jones professor.
Yes! That'd be great. But no, I agree. I think that it kind of tries to marry the two, but there's definitely like a rejection quality of that. You know, like if you put the wrong blood in somebody, how it rejects it. I feel like it's the same thing. They're trying to like merge the two.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I say it is significant that one of the ways to stop the vampire is the crucifix or the communion wafer. But I would also say there's a mix of science there because you have to behead it, which I'm sure would stop anyone. So
with the blood transfusions, I I don't know if this is true the whole time, but I got the feeling that after a certain point, even if they kept giving her the blood transfusions, or like even if she hadn't grown the teeth, I feel like she might still have turned into a vampire after a more natural death. But if that would have been true the whole time, but more like after a couple of feedings, then that's probably how you're going to end up, and you have to find some way to reconcile that.
Yeah.
That makes sense. How did y'all feel about the way he set mood, like in it? Because I mean, that's like a huge thing in Gothic literature. Is like setting the mood. Let's make it dark. Throw in a thunderstorm. Light a candle. Scream in the distance. How did y'all feel about the way he did that?
I liked it. From page 1, you're just in this kind of other country and you're traveling around. You don't really know what's going on, but hey, it's cool. And like, oh, there's a person who's just like crossing themselves and they seem kind of freaked out. And then you meet this creepy coach driver and you're just like, what is going on?
I like agree with you too, Amy, especially on the point that the book starts with with another country that's probably not familiar to the reader. So it sets this tone of like the unfamiliar or the unknown. Like you're in this place that you don't know the culture or the customs. And I guess it already puts Harker at a disadvantage, but it already puts the reader at a disadvantage. You know, I don't know this country. Is it normal for Dracula to not eat dinner?
It's a cultural thing.
It's a cultural thing.
Just respect it.
He's crawling up the walls. It's a cultural thing. It's fine.
Does anyone have any opinions on like the cultural depictions in this book? Like, I definitely caught some racist discussion in there. But I also don't like. I feel like I need to learn more about the area and the country before I totally understand everything that he was talking about.
Mm-hmm. There was definitely an issue with the way that he referred to the Romani people. Because that's typically not a word that is accepted. Now I'm not sure if it was accepted at some point or if it just people didn't really think about it at one point. And those people were I don't want to mean like those people, but the Romani people were portrayed as shifty and like you can't quite trust them because they were sort of working for him at one point maybe, and it was like so they were portrayed in a way that was very negative. So that's one that I caught in there.
Well, I'd be interested to know, like, I don't know, but I'd be interested to learn about the history between maybe Ireland and Transylvania and see, like, since Stoker is Irish, how did that affect his views?
Yeah.
I don't know how accurately, like, Romania and Transylvania was depicted. Part of me wants to assume probably not that accurately, but I don't know. The way the Romani people were treated was definitely not great. We didn't even get any insight as to why they're pro Dracula. They just are.
That would have been a great like perspective to get. Like,
maybe Dracula's not a racist. I don't know.
Because I know he's rich, but there's only so much you'll do for money, isn't there? Or maybe not. But again, that's a bad perspective on them. Yeah,
they definitely weren't treated accurately. I don't know how Romani people felt about the word that was used to describe them in the books at the time. I know that was a common word, but I guess common in how, like, back in the day you could call anyone a racial slur and that was just fine, without even consulting how those people felt about it. But yeah, that was definitely something I noticed. And I wish it wasn't that way. I wish they were given more nuance, or we could at least know why they are pro Dracula.
Yes. I
was researching about Ireland's relationship with certain things while we were talking. I was listening also. But apparently in the 1850s, because this was in 1897, yeah, and there was nativist discrimination against Irish Catholics at the time. In the 50s, it reached a peak at that time. So I'm not sure if that had any influence or not on the way that was dealt with. But yeah, no, I agree with what I said about because I think a lot of times slurs, sometimes when you're young, if you hear it, you're like, is this bad? And it depends on who's around you if it's bad or not. Just like with curse words, I'm like, my family, if I said a certain word, I would have gotten the soap and all that good stuff in your mouth. Whereas in some families, it's like that's just the normal. Not everybody. It's not like a common. I don't know what's common or not, but like we don't a lot of times learn these things until we've gotten older and we have more access to things outside of our immediate surroundings, especially like being raised in a place where people are very closed-minded and bigoted and stuff like that. It took me going to college and actually being online and meeting people that were not like me to learn that, oh, this is bad, I shouldn't say that, oh, this is bad, maybe challenge those thoughts and stuff like that. So I don't know at that time if it was challenged or if it was thought of the same way to use those terms or not, but yeah. But now it's obviously something that should be addressed, as we're talking about it, even though we can't be like, hey, Brom, change your stuff. But I don't know.
Do you think he was promoting a certain religion, like Catholicism, over Church of England or anything? I don't know that I got a sense of him being like one over the other, but I'm also not that religious, so.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, it's really, really hard to tell because when you put your religion into your fiction, it's a kind of like walking a tightrope a little bit because you're like, at what point is this, for me at least, what point is this blasphemous to what I believe in, intrinsically? And so I think that that's definitely interesting thing to think about. I was trying to I tried to research as we were talking about certain topics like that, and I was trying to see what his religion is, and I don't know. I think he might be promoting. Oh, he was Protestant, so maybe he was a little bit against the, I don't know, Catholicism a little bit.
Part of me is wondering, I don't know what the official religion of Transylvania was, but I wonder if it's more like vampires are repelled by maybe signs of the Catholic Church, if that was their home country's religion. I don't know if they explained why Catholic symbolism specifically repelled vampires.
I don't remember that ever being explained. There's got to be some origin story out there.
Yeah. They're primarily from the 18th to the 20th centuries, the Romanian Greek Catholic Church had substantial influence, but most Romanians are Eastern Orthodox. So like the person that I work with that's Romanian is she's Eastern Orthodox, and at least her perception of the difference is like their priests can get married, so there's a lot less of the issues that we see in a lot of like media and things that have been brought to light about a lot of things. That's their perception of that, is that since their priests can get married, there's less corruption. I'm not Catholic. We've looked in Orthodox churches, but we haven't actually visited. It's a big change for me. But yeah, I think that's kind of where their sort of view is on that. But I don't know. I'll see if there were any other questions we didn't really settle. Does anyone in the chat have any questions about anything Dracula related? Or do any of you have anything that you feel like you need to cover we haven't covered?
Just something I'd like to point out. Mina Harker's fatal flaw is that she doesn't like garlic. I cannot forgive her for that. Honestly, it sounds like being protected from a vampire is really fun because you're just surrounded by garlic all the time.
I saw a post one time about Italians. And it was talking about how they love garlic, and a lot of times they're usually Catholic, and it's really hot and sunny there, and they're basically talking about how it's like the worst place if you're a vampire. You're an Italian vampire, you're just screwed.
It's the best place for me.
Based vampire novel. We also need one talking about those Italians.
Those Italians. Which is interesting because weren't the big bad vampires in Twilight Italian? Weren't they in Rome?
Oh, yes. Volturi. Sorry, that was embarrassing how quickly I came up.
I was saying it in my mind, and I was like, "Don't say it out loud; they'll know." But you're right. Yeah, the Volturi. They have an eye at the end. It's obviously Italian.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Ooh, here's some insight. We'll get to that question one moment. Let's see. I thought since he was Protestant, the Catholicism in Dracula's country was a way to make it seem more mysterious and mystical and merely other or unfamiliar, spookier to someone unfamiliar with it. I agree with that. I think that's I think it was Amy that mentioned, or was it Taylor that mentioned that, like, putting in a country that a lot of the readers weren't familiar with was kind of a big part of that.
Taylor. That was Taylor.
Yeah, which I think is, now we have more access to things in other places, but at the time it's like, I live here and this is all I read. So it definitely could add to the mystery. Yeah. Oh, here's a question though. Did anyone think it could have been shorter? I felt like it was drawn out a bit. Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like there were a lot of monologues and a lot of like weird tangents that I feel like didn't need to be in there.
What parts would you cut?
So many.
I'd probably cut out Renfield completely. Like, I know that he has a purpose, but for my kind of reading, I wasn't getting it. I wasn't connecting. Like, he was interesting, but I almost feel like you could have just done a separate book on Renfield and just cut that out of Dracula. Also, the part with the sailor, because I just have so much trouble with that dialogue. I can't understand it.
I loved that part because of the narrator. Because then he was like, I don't know quite what he said, but like he would comment on how it was confusing to understand it. But I agree with what Sarah said with the monologues. I always hate when someone's writing a journal entry and it's so detailed, because it's like, you don't remember that much of that conversation. I appreciated it when he was like, and then we talked about this. Like, I think Jonathan Harker did that a couple times. I was like, good, yes, because you can't remember all of that.
Yeah.
That's something I have with Frankenstein. It's like a person telling a story that they heard from another person telling a story from this one. It like does this weird storytelling thing, and it's like, it doesn't quite make sense to me that you would remember all those words. I had to slow the audiobook down for those parts, says the beautiful bookworm. I didn't, because I was like, I thought it was intentional the way he talked. I was like, it's supposed to be confusing, probably.
I tend to speed through. Like, I'm someone who listens to at least 1.25 times speed, if not faster. I can't do 2 times speed, though. That's too much.
That's understandable. Oh, Irina said English is their second language. That sailor hard to understand. Yes, I agree. I liked it.
That makes me wonder, like, I have that Spanish copy of Dracula, so I'm like, if I finally decided to actually commit to learning Spanish, and then I read the Spanish old sailors speak, like, I could be like, oh, I can speak Spanish. I can speak 1800 Spanish.
Perfect.
You would come across as so refined.
It's true.
You aren't always refined.
I'm fancy like that.
Super refined.
In Spanish.
All right. Does anyone have any? Oh, wait. Let's see. One more question that I think is interesting. It's kind of a combination. That's okay. We're gonna go for it anyway. What does the emphasis on transformation suggest about Bram Stoker's views on like identity? Because he focuses a lot on the age transformation and like beauty transformation. What do you think his thoughts on identity are?
It's a really interesting question.
It's a really confusing question.
I don't know, because like, I almost feel like he has this whole different idea of life than the modern reader, because for us it's like we're trying to build women up and say they can do anything, and men still have to keep their distance from each other. But in this book, they're like, women are dainty, but Mina's also trying to fight for herself and be like, I want to be a part of this. And then the men have that amazing friendship that is really hard to find right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's interesting. And also they're emotional. Like the men are emotional in this, which is something that's shied away from.
Yeah.
A lot of times. So it was, like when they mourn and or even when they're overwhelmed and things like that. So I thought that was interesting to see and nice to see. It was refreshing.
I feel like everyone was pretty set in their identity, but there was a lot of room there for growth in knowledge. Like, they came to understand, I don't know the whole world, so I'm going to learn more about it. But as for their identities, I feel like they were pretty static.
Yeah.
So do you think that, like when someone became, I guess, more vampiric, I don't know, how they started looking younger and more beautiful and things like that. Why do you think that he made the vampires like beautiful? Because I know like on Buffy, the vampires are ugly. Like they're real ugly. But like in Dracula and in most things they're super pretty and they're supposed to be more beautiful and younger and all that stuff. So why do you think he did that?
I feel like it's kind of adding to the demonization of sexuality, and also just the modern culture being very much, if you're not sexy, then you're nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So to be important, to be interesting, you have to be beautiful, you have to be sexy. And that's something that has very much, I think, continued from the 1800s on.
Yeah. I think part of it, and once again, not to bring up Twilight, I haven't read it in 10 years, but I was an active Twilight fan club in middle school. But I know in Twilight they mentioned that they look beautiful because they're hunters. It's to bring people in. And I wonder if Bram Stoker had the same idea for like Dracula and the brides. The brides are described as voluptuous, like they're beautiful, they're sexy, and that's to draw people in, I guess like if they looked very scary and demonic, most people wouldn't be up for that. But if Dracula's hot and the brides are hot, you're more likely to just, well, okay.
So like why do you think the Buffy vampires were made to be scarier rather than beautiful and sexy and drawing people in?
Because they're bad guys and she's supposed to kick their butts. But then there's also like a love story. But I think it's a lot because they're supposed to be bad guys and it's supposed to just be this like kick-ass kind of show, I think.
Do you prefer the bad guy or do you prefer the evil seductress?
Ooh, I like morally gray. I like a mix. I like it to be confusing.
Yeah.
Black and white stories have gotten really boring to me lately.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, I want to question the villain and kind of go for the villain sometimes. The villain.
Yeah. I don't always mind evil. Like, I didn't really imagine, Dracula is cute in this book, but part of me is like, the Catholic guilt really does add a layer to this if he's, like, evil. So, adds a little spice to things.
I want to point out your comment in this chat, not like other vampires.
I'm not like a normal vampire. I'm a cool vampire. So cool. Yeah, I pictured him as this like posh dude. I kind of wanted to picture him as Mads Mikkelsen because can't think about him too long or I'll get lost. But yeah, so I think that was part of it was the attraction factor, and also there's a vanity aspect to it, I think too, and the live forever. Like you're not supposed to live forever. You're supposed to eventually let go of life and move on to the next the afterlife and things like that. So a big kind of role in that.
I think it also, like, going off that, it also adds to the threat, because if Dracula was, how old is he supposed to be? Like, he's hundreds of years old. If he looked hundreds of years old, he's not going to be much of a threat. Like, okay, we'll just take him down with a light shove or something. But, like, if he's young and, like, I guess sort of active or, I don't know. I can't think of the term, but like young and active, there's more of that threat there.
Mm-hmm. Fit and whatnot.
Yeah.
Not like you're gonna earn your Boy Scout badge helping him across the street or something. Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that.
That would be a way to get the kids. If you're trying to get the kids, you put on your older form and be like, "Hello, young man.
Hello.
You.
Invite me across the street." They were so mean to kids in this book.
Yeah.
I wonder if he really hated kids. Like, if he was just like...
I feel like... I don't know this for sure because I can't remember all of the older books that I read, but I feel like kids have gotten more personality as literature has gone on to the modern day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, Dracula, the kids aren't really anything important.
I wonder if that has something to do with the fact that like education changed and then they started like learning to read younger and things like that.
Laws for working kids. And...
Yeah. And also, I think we still might be in the sort of kids should be seen and not heard phase of child rearing.
Yeah.
They were definitely much more sympathetic now. I think I remember in one of my English classes discussing that childhood was very different from the centuries, and it wasn't until around the mid 1700s when people were like, kids should play. That should be fun for them, right?
Being a very much kids are tiny adults situation.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, no, I think that was, it reminds me of that, was it a Vine? I think it, imagine there was a child right in front of you. She's like, psh. That's what I feel like he did with kids. He's just like, let's get rid of them. But no, there has definitely been a change. All right. Does anyone else have anything specific that they would like to say about Dracula? What was your rating?
Mine's usually 5 stars. This time I think was actually 4.5. But I've also been in a weird mood this month, so
it does impact that.
I'm stuck between 4.5 and 5 stars. I love this book.
I'm thinking for me it's probably like a 3.5 to 4 star.
That's fair. I am in the process of trying to be more defined with how I want to star things because apparently people care. And so I'm like, stars don't really mean anything to me. It's really just what I talk about with the books. But I feel like I still gave it 5 stars because I was just here for it. I was like pleasantly surprised. And when I find a classic that I really like, then I'm like, well, this is quality content. So I'm here for it. Yeah. All right. Any final thoughts? Anything? No,
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So, Beautiful Bookworm said, gave it 3.5. Enjoyed it but didn't love it. That's fair. Illness weakness was often considered to be a blood disorder when the taking in of new blood constantly be then equated with an increase in strength vitality, which would be, ooh. I want to highlight this one right here. Look at that. That is actually really interesting. We also have a 5 and a 4 star. I think this makes a lot of sense though, because I never thought of it like that because that's icky. But I think that's definitely a connection that could be made. We got a 5 star, we got a 4 star, a 3.5. Yeah, I think I gave it 5. Yeah, I enjoyed it though. I'd be willing to try and read more vampire, like Carmilla and things. Another 4 star.
Well, Taylor and I are doing the Vampathon next month.
Yes, I saw that. I'm gonna have to look into it.
Excited for that.
Yeah, me too.
Hopefully, I Am Legend feels more like a vampire story as a book than it did as a movie.
Yeah, I've seen it described when I looked up more like I looked up like I guess kind of modern Gothic literature, and it was like one of the things that came up, and I was like, oh, interesting. Iggy gave it 3.5. Yeah. So speaking of, so when is the Vampathon? Like, what are the?
It's the 1st to the 31st of October. We have the Guild of Stories for the group book, and then 4 really simple prompts. What was it? Classic vampire and non-traditional vampire, book you want to sink your teeth into, and Old Legends is what I called the last one, and it's just read something short. Like Carmilla's a novella, could read some short stories. I have my book of 100 vampire short stories that I may never finish.
I might have to like hop on that.
Yeah.
I have I'm going to be one of the co-hosts on the Rocky Horror Readathon.
Ooh.
Next.
That one.
Yeah, it's the last 2 weeks of the month, and it's got a bingo board thing going on, and all the spaces are either named after songs, characters, or like some of the callbacks.
The Rocky Horror.
Yeah, it's really great.
Rocky Horror.
To what?
I've never seen Rocky Horror. Maybe this will give me motivation to watch it.
It's great. It's campy. It's great. Also, want to point out that Iggy in the comments has a book that's on sale, apparently just for Vampathon, which is super exciting. I did get a copy of the ebook for that. I'm excited.
Yeah, I definitely just got my copy in yesterday. Where did I put it? It's somewhere around here. I just got it. But it's called Blood and Vinyl, right? so everyone should check that out as well. Iggy, if you leave a link under or in the actual comments of this video, I'll pin it. Does anyone have anything else that they want to promote while we're here? I like to give people the chance to do so. No? Okay.
Find out all the spooky readathons. Join them all.
Yes. Join them all. I'm going to be sitting down and like making a chart, a comprehensive chart to decide like how I'm going to do this because I definitely failed this month. My own readathon.
I still haven't entered my pages for Monsterathon.
Is anyone else here
I
reading?
haven't entered my pages for Monsterathon. Last day, all the prompts are going to get pages.
Yeah, I just do it when I finish the book. What'd you say?
Is anyone else here reading Haunting of Hill House for next month? Because I know that's the next.
I am.
Of
course I have to.
I have the audiobook from the library.
Yes.
I wasn't a fan of We've Always Lived in the Castle, but I've been wanting to read Haunting of Hill House, so this is my excuse.
Perfect.
I read Haunting of Hill House last year for a class, and I really loved it. So I haven't decided if I'm rereading it for the cover or not, but I do really love that book.
Yeah. I'm going to maybe get the audiobook from the library. I don't know if it's going to be too scary for me, so fingers crossed.
So I've heard that it's not like the show. I can't think about it too long, or I start like freaking like glancing behind my shoulder and stuff. But like I hear it's more like, you know, like Gothic literature. It's kind of scary, but it's not like as terrifying.
Yeah, I don't think it's particularly scary, but it's really atmospheric.
Okay, I like atmosphere.
I do better with books than with more visual media. Like if it's going to be scary, I'll read the book first and then see how I feel about it. Because movies, I can't sleep at night.
Yeah, I'm the absolute same way. Like if I've seen it, then I keep seeing it in my head over and over and over again. So when I read it, I don't really, I don't know. When I read, I just picture like vague ideas. It's not quite as vivid. So I think that's nice. Rena said, watch the Netflix show.
I love the Netflix show.
Finish the Netflix show.
It was really good and terrifying. And I don't think I'm going to watch the sequel, but it was so good. So
I'm really excited for the sequel because it's based on Turn of the Screw, which I also read for a class last year, and I'm just like fascinated by that story. So I'm really excited to see what directions they take it.
Ooh, I didn't know that.
Finish Turn of the Screw. I think James
It's a really weird, dense book. So it's like hard to understand, but like the story itself, I really like. If that makes sense.
I need to find like the Cliff Notes version or something because the writing was not working.
Yeah.
I'm just writing down Turn of the Screw. I'm gonna have to. I like the idea that the sequel is not based on the same book.
Oh hey, beautiful bookworm. Books are scarier for me than movies.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's very interesting. Scarier, but that's interesting. I've never heard someone say that. Usually it's the other, but I guess it depends on. I don't want to go all psychology on everybody, but I guess it depends on like how you sort of process information. You know.
Yeah.
I process different, like, because I think we process differently depending on the medium. So, like, visually, I have a hard time with, like repetitive images in my head, but also with sounds. But when I'm reading, it doesn't really have that same vibe, I guess. So, it's interesting. I'm not going to analyze you. That'd be weird. So, but yeah, anything else to plug or anything? That's awesome. I wish I had a vivid. I mean, my imagination, I can create things, but I can't. Gotta make it to see it. But yeah, so thank you so much everybody that joined us and that y'all stayed and hang out and said things, and thank you to the co-hosts for sharing all your thoughts and your ideas and your insights and things like that. So I hope everybody will join us next month to read Haunting of Hill House, and I'm going to be posting what is it called, the Google form for anybody who was interested in co-hosting next month. And there's no limit to how long ago you hosted or anything like that. So if any of you want to co-host next month, you're welcome to apply as well. But I will be posting that on Twitter and also on my community tab here on YouTube. But that is all. Thank you everyone for joining us, and yeah, check out next month. Bye.